Welcome in to the Formula Un by Americans podcast. I am your host, Patrick Finley, along with my co host, Stephen Harris. Stephen, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, so I'm excited to get back into it.
I know, man. Schedules kind of dictated a lot of that, but yes, no, I'm very excited to jump in here and talk about the last little bit of the season and also the last race there. So really looking forward to talking about it, and then also you and I can kind of share some discussions that we've had about next year and maybe a little bit of a rebrand and moving forward and more content. So looking forward to that.
Yes, same here.
Well, let's just dive right on in. I thought before we talked about the race from this past weekend, I thought we need to set that up with some of the races that happened a few weeks ago. And the first race that I wanted to touch on briefly, Stephen, was the U.S. Grand Prix, which was held in Austin. And I had the gracious opportunity to attend that race. And man, that place was packed. I
No,
mean, people everywhere. The traffic was horrendous. It looks like that Coda did not finish up some projects that they had coming into the race weekend, but the racing and the on track activity, man, was it? I thought it was pretty good. What about you, Stephen?
right? Yeah. I mean, and speaking of being packed, I think I was there. I believe it was 2018, and I'm watching it on TV, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so the you could just tell the difference in the attendance. I mean, it was like shoulder to shoulder for you guys there, and it wasn't like that just a couple of years back. So to see that and see the growth, I mean, that's just really cool to see. Um, just as a fan and seeing more fans getting interested in it, and I'm hearing more conversations about it at work or wherever the case may be. Where just a
Right.
couple short years back, it felt like I was kind of on an island like in Formula One myself. So it's just really cool to kind of see the growth and expansion of it, and that was just a testament to that, I think. So, um, but yeah, what was it like there at the race?
Yeah, like you said, man, it was packed. Every session, whether it was qualifying or practice session, I mean, it was packed, and it took us about probably 2.5 hours to get out there on race day to leave,
Oh,
trying to catch flights. So it was absolute craziness, just the whole weekend. And one of the conversations that we had was, the guys that I was there with, they are all Formula One. They've all attended races in the past, and we all concluded that this is the Netflix crowd. This is what that this is the result of that.
hmm
Because we did hear conversations from people that what is this? Why are they doing this? And that are
hmm
if you're a long time Formula One fan, there's reasoning behind they do everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're not asking that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And one question that I heard was, do they take up the track?
Stop.
That's, I mean, but hey, look, it's a little bit of a valid question when you have tracks like Saudi Arabia or something like
Okay,
that is a street course. So I can
that's true.
understand like some parameters around that question. Um, but yeah, do they take up the track and go to the next video? Yeah, that's one question. But
Yeah.
apart from the crowds and apart from the just the chaos of the weekend, that you know everything that surrounded the Formula One circus, and our good friend Martin Brundle getting dissed on the
Yes.
Looking back, I actually think that there was a huge moment in that race that now looking forward, you say, or looking back, that was a big game changer in the championship. And that was the undercut that Max did on Lewis to gain the lead and to go on those fresher tires and be able to build out that lead and then have the upper hand going forward in that race. Would you agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was a pretty high risk strategy in a sense of just like pitting that early because I believe what was it we said it was lap 8 or 9, something like that. So to come in that early and kind of take that chance could really backfire on you. But I feel like just kind of to Red Bull's credit and how they've really been the whole season. Their strategy has really been very solid throughout the season, and when they took those chances like that, it seems like it paid off far more times than it backfired on them. So, but yeah, I do remember that race. I remember it being one of those drives from Max that was just a really solid drive throughout. Did what he needed to do to win that race, and so it definitely was one of those races where once again kind of solidified his position. And looking back at it, it's a small thing, but 6 points was, or what was it, maybe 7 points, I guess, swing one way or the other can obviously really adds up, as we've come to see at the end of the season here. So yeah, definitely a great call by Red Bull to do that and to pull it off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was a 7 point swing as Max did, or I'm sorry, Lewis had the fastest lap of that race.
Okay.
But yeah, no, you're totally right, man. That looking back, that those calls that Red Bull had throughout the year. I mean, I think just time and time again, those calls, because they knew, if they didn't do it, the Mercedes was going to do it. Mercedes had the upper hand, so who's gonna do it first? But then you get to the end of the race and you see, and what happens when you go first is your tires are going to fall off faster. And you saw at the end of the race what happened. Lewis was chasing down Max, and
Yes.
Lewis only lost by a little over a second at that race. So you stretch that out another lap.
Right. Yeah.
That's a whole different ballgame, I think.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. I think who was it that gave Verstappen the DRS? Was it Stroll? I think
it was Mick.
That's right. Yeah. So Mick
might have, and it was also Mick that caused the wreck at Abu Dhabi, I think.
It was.
Let's be honest. Mick was involved in that.
Right. I didn't know Red Bull had a third driver.
They got 4 next year with Albon.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, it's all coming together now.
It's all coming together. Exactly. No. So yeah, I thought that was, and that's why I put it on the agenda tonight, was because I thought that was a pivotal moment, especially now that we have an opportunity to look back. And obviously there's those other pivotal moments like Lewis botching the restart in Azerbaijan. I mean, you have those type moments, and and that was actually a huge swing because of Max's crash earlier on.
Right.
That if he finishes, even if he just finishes second.
Yeah, exactly.
He finishes third. Forget shooting the gap. Just finish.
Yeah. It's free points.
But anyway,
you're gaining. Exactly.
So, well, the next one that we've got that we want to talk a little recap on is Brazil, and talk about. I think the ending of the year was just jam-packed with action, and Brazil again was one of these races that I thought that Red Bull may have the advantage because it seemed like on the
Hmm.
tracks where there was more like infield turns that they were having they had better grip than the
Hmm.
Mercedes. But if there was more straightaways, Mercedes definitely had the upper hand in power. So I was really thinking that Max would have the upper hand in Brazil, but
Hmm.
Mercedes says, you know what, we're going to dump a brand new engine into the back of Lewis's car. And so that got him a little 5th place grid penalty.
Hmm.
Um, he took pole, but what happened after that, Mr. Harris?
He had a larger gap in his wing than he should have had, albeit
Exactly.
a, albeit a very tiny amount. But rules are rules. So
Rules are rules. And sent him to the back for the sprint race.
right, yeah.
And, and man, did he ever come up through the field in that sprint race. That was
Hmm.
amazing to watch, and I think pundits from all around the world were commenting on that race, and as well as
Yes.
our little thread that we've got. I mean, we were all,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think um, considering everything, I think that was the driver of the year. I can't really think of another race out there where a driver was able to just move through the field like that. And I mean, talk about a clutch drive too, being this late in the season and as close as they were in the points and everything to get that. I mean, that was you know huge weekend for him, and to pull it off from last to first, it's a pretty impressive thing to see.
yeah, it really was. I think in the sprint race he got up to, I think, 5th, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
And he had the 5 place grid penalty, so he started like 10th or something in the
Hmm.
race. Um, and so and he just came charging through the field, and it was something to watch for sure. So
Hmm.
that was, you look at pivotal moments from the year, and if he doesn't recover from that, or he gets taken out by back markers
Hmm.
doing whatever they're doing at the back of the field, uh, you know,
Yeah.
the championship's over.
Yeah.
You
Oh, for
know,
sure. Yeah.
um, so I thought that was a pivotal drive
Hmm.
for Lewis there, and I'll give it to him. That was, like you said,
Right.
that was the drive of the year for sure.
Hmm.
Anything else, Stephen, on Brazil before we move on to the Nashville of the Formula One races?
The only other thing that really stuck out to me was I was surprised to see Ferrari doing so well there because they finished fifth and sixth, and they were in that
Yep.
battle with McLaren. I think McLaren actually finished outside the points, if I recall right, on that race. So that was one of those pivotal ones for the manufacturers. Third and fourth, that battle. And so that was one of those where I think Ferrari really started to kind of show up and kind of say, that we're going for third here. That was a pretty big race for them, I thought. So
No, you're right. That McLaren and Ferrari battle at the end of the year, Ferrari just turned it up a notch.
hmm.
And you look at where they were finishing. Lando finished 10th. From the Mexican Grand Prix on, Lando finished 10th, 9th, 10th, 7th.
Hmm.
And if you look at Carlos, he finished 6th, 7th, 8th, and 3rd.
Yeah.
So yeah, McLaren kind of limped in there, and that was really hard to watch because they were so strong through the middle of the
Yeah.
season win, and
Yeah.
Lando's almost win in
Mm.
Russia.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I just really thought, overall that, and there was some bad luck in there, like Lando's puncture in
Yes.
Qatar.
Hmm.
Again, he had a puncture in Abu
Yes.
Dhabi.
Yes. Yeah. Couple races there.
So just a lot of, and then the Saudi Arabia
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
in the red flag or this first safety car, he comes in, changes tires, and then they red flag the race. Everybody changes tires, and now he's in 14th.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So a lot of bad luck, really.
Yeah.
Because they were running well. I mean, like you saw
Oh yeah.
Lando qualify well in Abu
Yeah.
Dhabi.
Yeah. I
So
mean, Ricardo won
I
at
think there's good things
Monza.
to come for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah. So it was a good season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about Saudi Arabia, and I just said that was the Nashville track for F1. Uh, what were your what were your first thoughts on that track when you looked at it?
Man, it was in the practice sessions. I was thinking this is not going to make for a great race. I don't really see where you're going to be able to overtake. It's thin, it's windy. There's just not a lot of straightaways. But kind of as the race got going, aside from just where you just have too many cars in one spot, causing accidents in a sense. It actually turned out to be a fairly decent track, better than I expected, I guess, is what I should say. And I kind of like that is a little bit different of a circuit from kind of the rest of
Yeah.
the calendar, which I think kind of makes that kind of nice, I think. But yeah, I mean, it better than I expected, but still, I wouldn't necessarily say it was, this is a top track or top 10 track or anything like that, though. So, I mean, what were your takeaways on it?
Yeah, I just from my initial thoughts, I I definitely I mean it was definitely gonna be fast, so it was gonna be interesting to see how they mixed kind of the speed and the layout of that track.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, there was just nothing memorable. There were like no memorable corners, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at a
Yeah.
racetrack for me, and you think about memorable corners, like in Austin, you look at turn one, that
Mm-hmm.
grand run up to turn one.
Yeah.
Brazil, you look at the corkscrew.
Yes. Yeah.
Spa, I mean, what corner in Spa is not iconic? So you
Right.
start looking at all these different, yeah. So you start looking at all these different tracks. And you're like, oh, those, that's a great turn, or
Mm-hmm.
that's a great straightaway.
Mm-hmm.
And with this track, I was just like, there's nothing like. I kept watching, and I was like, I don't know where they are.
Right. Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
marks, there's no markers, and so
True.
it just for me, just it wasn't there visually, and I think that's so much about the racing experience as well as is the visual aspects of it.
For sure.
Um, so yeah, just struggled with the track overall.
Yeah.
I It does seem dangerous for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Mazepin when he ran up underneath George, he had nowhere
Yes.
to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, even if he could avoid it, he was going into a wall or another car, and so
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just I don't know, and I don't know if they're going to return next year to it, but I hope there's some changes or something because it didn't produce that great a racing. It
Mm-hmm.
obviously produced a lot of drama
Right.
from other aspects, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not not thrilled with it.
Right. Yeah. And something else I did notice too is just how many times or how many different camera angles you have to have with all those windy turns. So it's like you get 2 seconds with this camera shot, two
Yeah,
seconds with the next one. So it is kind of hard to follow when you're watching on TV just because of that aspect. You don't get the long straightaways where you kind of can sit on it for a few seconds and watch it into a turn or whatever. So I think that aspect of it also kind of played into kind of not being as likable of a circuit for most of us fans, I think. So
yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
yeah. But there
Well,
was some drama on the track, though, wasn't there?
there was some drama on the track, and For me, I didn't see a lot of what in that first incident where they complained about Max. I didn't see what they, did he drive
Hmm.
too far into the corner? Yeah, maybe. But
Hmm.
did he was he in the lead? He was in the lead. So I mean, some of that, I think it's so tough to call, especially
Hmm.
when you're told, all right, stay in the white lines. All right, so I stayed in the white lines. Now you can punish me.
Yeah.
But and then also the ending of it where they told him to give the position back, and I don't know if he was doing anything deliberately or he was trying to slow down. I know, Stephen, you're pretty active on the Reddits, and they go back and look at all the telemetry. I saw something pop up about that. I didn't read it. Did you
Hmm.
see anything about that?
I did. I mean, they show where Verstappen obviously let off and got onto the brakes, kind of tried to move towards the middle of the track to give Lewis. What I think he was trying to do is give him the outside for the corner. Um, but you do see the braking kind of increase to where he kind of does do a pretty hard braking. Um, However, I would also say, kind of from what I saw of Lewis, as far as just watching the onboard, Lewis is letting up too, which is weird. And I don't know if knows that he's got to give up, that Verstappen has to give up the spot, but he doesn't want to pass at that place because if he passes there, then it gives DRS to Verstappen. So I don't know if that's where Lewis's head was, or if Lewis was just kind of in a spot of just not realizing what was going on. But it's clear he was slowing down too, kind of with Verstappen. And so I think that's kind of what led to Verstappen kind of really jumping the brakes in a sense to kind of like, get around me. I'm trying to give you the spot type of thing. So um, I don't know. It was kind of interesting. The more I've looked into it, the more I've kind of seen, different angles like that about it. But what can you really do in that situation? Um, it kind of seems like Hamilton should have, you would think his driving IQ would kind of see what's going on. You see a driver slowing down, so like let me get around him type of thing, as opposed to running into the back of him. It just kind of seems like a weird instinct to have, I guess. Where what if Verstappen's car had just broken down, as opposed to him trying to let him around? You wouldn't just
Right.
run into the back of him. So just kind of I don't know. I think it was maybe he was just so caught off guard by it that you're trying to process something in the milliseconds of time that they have to do that, and just
Yeah,
kind of threw
that's
threw
exactly
threw him
right.
off of his game type of thing. So I don't know. It's definitely an interesting situation. Not really one that's very common within F1 at all. So, um, and man, I mean, if you really think about it too, Hamilton needing to finish that race with the broken front wing, but if a
Yeah,
piece of that wing comes off, blows out his tire,
I
and he
kept
doesn't
thinking about
finish,
that. Yeah,
yeah, the championship would have been over. So so Mercedes maybe living a bit on the edge there, but got that call right to keep him out there and go ahead and get the win there. So, um, yeah, what could have very easily ended the whole entire championship from that incident turned into a great weekend for Mercedes to get right back into it and everything. So,
yep. They stayed in it, and they then headed to Abu Dhabi. And man, I I initially thought, kind of going into the weekend, I think over the past couple of years, it's kind of bounced back and forth between Red Bull and Mercedes there. Red Bull last year,
hmm
but the
hmm
track changes and layout changes they did to the track, I think a lot of people thought that favored Mercedes.
hmm
Um, and I think overall, I mean, I think if you look at the race, I think we would have to agree that it did.
yeah,
Um, so, you know, Max and them were faster on the softer tire, and I think they're I think they really wanted to go on that medium tire to start the race with that
right.
Max flat spotting that tire in that turn one in qualifying. I think that kind of botched that up
Right.
for him. So
Yeah.
yeah, so just a lot. I mean, there's a lot to process, obviously, from this race because I texted
Mhm.
you guys at one point, and I was not. Sadly, I was not watching the race live. I had a delayed flight. I had to spend the night in the Atlanta airport, and I was actually flying home during the race. But I I texted you guys, and I was like, I think I'm going to take a nap. Once Hamilton got by, I was like, I think I'm going to
Right.
take a nap
Yeah.
because we've seen this scenario play out.
Yep.
Um, but why the hell did I not go? Well, all right, I know what the season has also looked like, so I just need to stay up.
Right.
So watching it live, Harris, tell me. I mean, because I did not know who was going to win,
Hmm.
even when I was watching it delayed. But
Yeah.
when you were watching it, like what? Tell me your thoughts and feelings as you were watching it.
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like there was really no, I mean, very early on. Max had what was probably the qualifying lap of the year to get on pole. And then by turn one, Lewis already has the position back. So it just, from the start of the race, it just seemed like, well, this is just Lewis, 7-time champion. Just, he's got the better car for the track. Like, this is just how it's going to play out, I guess. And so then you get about 20, 30 laps in when Hamilton's trying to get past Sergio Perez for first place, and Sergio's holding him off and holding him up and gets Verstappen back in it. So like I'm back in it a little bit at that point, and kind of like, well, maybe there's a chance, and maybe the tide will turn a little bit. And Lewis just gets back out there and starts pulling away again. And then we have the virtual safety car that comes out, and I think Red Bull, was playing the opposite game of Hamilton and decided to, and so Hamilton and Mercedes decided to stay out. So they came in, changed tires, tried to get back into it, but wasn't gaining what they needed to gain. And then all of a sudden, Schumacher gets into it with Latifi, and then a couple corners later, Latifi loses it into the wall. And it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, like, now this is interesting. And then on top of that, Hamilton and Mercedes decided to stay out with hard tires that have got 40 plus laps on them, and which I just don't understand at all. And of course, Red Bull takes advantage of it, gets on softs for both Max and Checo, and then we're kind of back to the the decision, I guess, to whether they're going to restart it or not. But yeah, watching, I mean, it was just like one of those, like, almost here's an opportunity to possibly steal this away. So it was a relatively boring race, but it was also one of those things where the strategy that Red Bull was playing opposite of Mercedes just makes it very interesting, and kind of can turn a race into somewhat of a coin flip sometimes, like that. So I don't know if you
yeah,
want to kind of speak to that before we kind of get into the final part of that race or not, but I don't know if you wanted to speak into that.
much like you said, it was very after that first turn where Lewis got ahead, and then they said that Lewis, gave that position back or gave the advantage back. To me, it was just it was a little bit of a snooze fest there.
Hmm.
And again, like you commentated, Lewis just pulled that gap out, and
Hmm.
it didn't look like that there was going to be, there was not the opportunity for an undercut because Max is
Hmm.
already on the soft tires, so you'd have to go on soft tires again and really put in a couple of good laps to even try to get back to Lewis. But then Lewis is on a better tire and can push it longer, so he can just kind of like just hang with him for a little bit, and then those softs would fall off. So the undercut was not in play.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, it was just one of those. You almost needed something to spice it up, and even the virtual safety car, Max was able to take it from like 20 something seconds to 18 seconds or something like that, and Lewis got worried and was like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what? And they're like, he needs to do 8/10 of a second faster a lap to catch you, and there's 20 laps left.
Right.
So also, Max is not going to be able to keep up that kind of charge on those tires and keep them there. So
Mm-hmm.
I did not see that was going to be an option for Max to come back and win that race.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing was if a safety car were to come out, then that spices things up. Obviously, we know what happened between Mick and Latifi, and I think the call of the year was Red Bull coming in because they had nothing to lose. So
Exactly.
this is where it gets hairy, because if Mercedes comes in and pits, what does Red Bull do at that point? Do they come in and pit too?
I felt like they were going to no matter what, but I mean that is a good point. Do you take the track position and hope to finish under yellow, I guess, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean I kind of felt like Mercedes just kind of folded their hands and tried to play it safe and go that route with it. But it just didn't play out for them more than anything, I guess. So
Yeah, and obviously the crash from Latifi wasn't that bad. I thought they could get it cleared up a lot sooner. And they did have it cleaned up pretty well, and that's what allowed them to have that last lap. But what what were your thoughts on the last lap, Harris? What were you
so
shocked?
um not really. No. I mean,
Yeah,
I think more than anything, like I was thinking a lot about it. I think as a fan, I mean, I'm not really a Lewis or a Max fan. I was definitely rooting for Max. Just a new champion would be great for the sport. So, I mean, I was a little bit biased towards Max, but I'm not really a major fan of either one of them per se. So I'm a little and try to be somewhat unbiased, but just as a fan of the sport, it's like here we have this amazing season that we've been through with all these highs and lows and drama and everything. And to finish this type of a season under yellow would just be such a
bummer.
yeah, like that's how we're going to end this amazing season is
Hmm.
under yellow. So as a fan, I love the aspect of, hey, let's get a lap in for the fans in a sense, and of course with the way the strategy played out, it really hurt Lewis because here he is on 45 lap old hards trying to get around this one lap where you got Max with the fresh reds on and he's ready to go. And so, yeah, it really, I felt like the strategy really ended up being the biggest thing at fault here is just by them trying to play it safe, hoping to finish on yellow. It backfired on them, and Red Bull was there with the right strategy at the right time, and which kind of is emblematic of the whole entire season, I think, where I felt like Red Bull had so many races throughout the season where they just really aced the strategy and were able to, be able to put themselves in these type of positions. So, and then furthermore, on top of that too, I would say I mean, I think we can say, the laps led Max had that by a long shot. Poles, he had 10 poles, I believe, this season.
10
So
poles, 10 wins. Yep.
yeah, 10 wins as well. So I mean, he's definitely a worthy champion. It's not like he just somehow got lucky and
Luck
won it.
into it.
Yeah, yeah. He
It's
really
not
has.
like NASCAR that you could
Yeah.
get into the playoffs without winning a race, get to the end race of the year without winning a race, win the last race, and win the championship.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, which is possible in NASCAR. It actually happened in their Xfinity series this year, and happened one time previously with Matt Kenseth. I
Mhm.
think Matt Kenseth didn't even win a race that year, but anyway, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess call it, the gods of racing, kind of just
Yeah,
smiled some favor on Max, and I feel like that's kind of deservingly so. And um, I would also, the last point I'll make is, people want to say that the FIA decided this championship by calling it green. Well, they also would have decided it by saying that we're going to finish this one on yellow too. So I don't really feel like that argument holds any water. It's just one of those things where you want your guy to win, and I can understand and respect that. But at the same time, I don't think that there's any favoritism going one way or the other from what I've observed. I felt like Max fans and Lewis fans were both kind of ticked off at some point throughout the season with the FIA. So I don't feel like one side got the favor all the time or anything like that. So that's kind of my thoughts. I don't know if you want to go if you have any thoughts or takeaways on that.
yeah. I mean, not too much past what you said. I think you kind of surmised it pretty good. Look, you can go back to the history of Formula One and pick out these moments and go, man, that's sketchy.
Hmm.
I think I sent you guys the 2002.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Was it Hungary?
Us,
No,
us,
Austrian Grand
yes,
Prix.
yes.
Where Rubino gave up the win for Michael.
Hmm.
Now, what I didn't show was the next weekend at the U.S. Grand Prix, Michael slowed down and let Rubino win
Right.
because he felt so bad. Did you watch that whole clip, by the way, where
Yes.
Michael brought Rubens up onto the top step? Like, I mean,
Yes.
come on.
Right.
But so if we want to talk about all that mess about the final lap and all this, all the Netflix fans, that's fine. Talk about it, whatever you want, but you got to know the history of the sport, and you got to know that like there are things throughout the history of this sport that just stick out and go, man, that's kind of a sore thumb. But the sport
Hmm.
has survived and it's moved on. And Lewis was very gracious. I will say that in all
Hmm.
the interviews that I heard of him. And Max was too. And you know what? There's going to be a season next year, and who knows what it's going to be like
Right.
because
Hmm.
all the technical changes. Um, but whatever. I mean, whatever. I mean, I definitely think, like you said, it did not. This season did not need to end under yellow flag. And Massey was like, you know what?
Hmm.
Let's find a way to do it. And he
Hmm.
found a way to do it.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it because, oh, Max put on some fresh new tires. No, Red
Right.
Bull, like you said, did a strategy call.
Hmm.
And Mercedes didn't. Mercedes sat on their hands. And that's ultimately what cost them the race and the championship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my
I would
that's my
agree.
opinion.
Right.
That's my opinion on it. But yeah, so Max champion heading into next year. He will roll into 2022 with the number one nameplate,
Hmm.
or number one number plate on his car. The first time I think since 2014 that somebody's done that.
Hmm.
So that's pretty cool to see that that's back in the sport.
Yes.
It's always an option.
Hmm.
Lewis likes to race with his own number, which is fine.
Hmm.
And it's nice to know that somebody still respects the number one and wants to wants to roll with it.
Right.
So I think that's a pretty cool tradition in the sport.
I think so too. Yeah.
So well, let's do you have anything else you want to talk about Abu Dhabi. I know there was a lot going on in that race, especially the ending. But anything else you want to talk about before we kind of touch base on next season?
No, not really. I
Okay,
think we kind of hit everything to hit. So
agreed. Agreed. Well, I know that I teased it at the front, but Harris and I have been talking about more shows next year. Our good friend of the show, Rob Brazington, is committing. I think, did he commit in that text message earlier?
um, we'll find out next season.
Rob's level of commitment is different than most other people's level of commitment. We love you, Rob. We do.
We do.
We also love to give you a hard time.
Yes.
But no, we're looking at doing more content next year, so we're gonna get working on that during the break. Schedule these things out. Stick to a schedule so you know when our next podcast is. Rob said he's going to invest in some new technology for us. He's also taking us to the Miami Grand Prix next year.
What a friend.
What a friend. What a friend. What a friend. But I am also looking forward to all the new technical changes next year as well, and see how they have an impact on racing. Stephen, would you like to add anything on either one of those, the podcast for next year, possibly rebranding the podcast, and then also um, hopes for racing next year?
Yeah, just excited for next year. Not just only with what we're looking to do, but also with what F1 has going. I'm hoping and anticipating a more driving and overtaking type of closer field type of racing where we don't see people just haul off and get 30-second leads and whatnot. So that's my kind of hope for next season, that we see a little bit more on track action, a little bit easier to overtake and follow cars and stuff like that. So we'll see how it turns out, and it'll be interesting to see who it benefits and who it hurts. And so I'm excited for it. So change is always good in a sport like F1. So
for sure, man. I hope it kind of continue to use that word, spice it up a little bit.
right.
We need to bring some of these teams back in the fold, and maybe give new life to a team like a Haas, and maybe give new life to Williams and Alpha. Maybe these guys are more competitive, and there's a bigger fight maybe for fourth, fifth, and sixth, maybe in the championship.
Right.
And first to third is a big fight. So I would love to see more teams fighting for wins overall. I know we had some wins this year with Peter Gasly winning. We had Ricardo win this year.
Ricardo, yes. Ocon.
So we did have those guys win, but there were also big events that caused those guys to win as well. And I think we have to mention that just in the light of the competitiveness of the sport, that I would like to see these teams more competitive overall, week in, week out.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, Harris, we will put a nail in the coffin of the 2021 Formula One season, and it's been fun to begin our podcast journey and talking about the races. I've enjoyed it, look forward to it every time we've done it, and look forward to next year being more consistent with it and getting to talk about the full season as a whole, and hopefully more interesting racing.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Same here. I completely agree on all that. So,
but this year was not short on drama and interest. So
no, it was not.
I mean, I'll just say it was a great season. It was the first time since like the 60s that two guys have gone to the final race tied, which is amazing.
That is, yeah.
I mean, basically, it was whoever wins the race.
Right.
And I think, but I will say, I think that's the part that kind of gets me. That we knew either one of those guys was going to win the race. So whoever won the race was going to win the championship. What about
Mhm.
whoever finishes above the other guy?
Right.
Because Ferrari is up there fighting for a win, or McLaren's fighting for a win, or Williams is back fighting for a win.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Instead of 2-man show, we got,
yeah,
5 or 6 going. So I'm with you there.
yeah, that'd be great.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, we hope you have enjoyed Formula Un for Americans podcast year. We will, be in, get some things pushed out, via probably the socials here soon about this upcoming year. Follow us there. We don't have any current socials, but we will.
Mhm.
And so we'll make that known here soon. So follow us once we do, and maybe we'll do a little podcast reveal on socials and talk about the upcoming year. But until then, keep the wheels pointed right direction. We'll see you guys next year.
That's it. See you guys next year.